mark all that apply and select all that apply.
Ooh, I like it.
The terminology used in the standard should seek to ensure that all people are able to identify themselves within one or more categories. That the minimum and detailed categories reflect meaningful and easy to understand distinctions, and that the language used is respectful of how people refer to themselves.
What'd you say?
Proposal number 5 is about implementation guidance. The working group proposes that the standards for question design be that those related documents be placed online in a central location. They specified the need for guidance on an implementation timeline for when agencies must meet the new standards. Statistical methods to connect data collected under the current standards with the data collected under revised standards. This will be important as some data sets will be able to transition more quickly than others, and in order to preserve trend data. Procedures for collecting, processing, and reporting detailed racial and ethnic categories. Approaches for collecting race and ethnicity information when self-identification is not possible. Approaches for reporting data for respondents who select more than one race or ethnicity. Guidance on obtaining approval under the Paperwork Reduction Act to revise existing race and ethnicity data collections, and best practices for agencies to rely on when communicating SBD 15 revisions to stakeholders. It is a significant undertaking for agencies to implement changes to censuses, surveys, and administrative forms that collect race and ethnicity data. Agencies need guidance to implement any potential SBD 15 revisions like those included in the working group's initial proposal. So in closing, I want to stress again how important public feedback is to this process. The working group needs your input to help us understand how you view your racial and ethnic identities, how you want to use race and ethnicity data, and how you would like to be represented in federal data. In addition to the proposals that I just went over, the working group and OMB welcome comments and suggestions on any other way that the standards could be revised to produce more accurate and useful race and ethnicity data. So today we want to listen to you and hear your perspective. So please take this opportunity to share your thoughts with the public, the working group, and the Chief Statistician of the United States. And whether you choose to speak at this meeting or just listen, we encourage all of you here today to visit the Federal Register number to share your comments by April 12th, which is the best way to submit your comment. And so now we would like to turn it over to you to hear what you have to say. So Michael, I think we're ready to begin hearing public comment.
Turn this down. So the link at the top is where you can put your public comment. So I definitely suggest that you do that. We are actually going to have like a little powwow together, and actually send them, you know how we do. But yeah, the link is at the top. I was not able to get in queue. Hopefully some of y'all did. I know some people. Y'all, I'm in Clubhouse too. That's the number I had for you too.
Comment of 2 minutes or less.
But I couldn't get in queue. What'd you say? Yep.
No, for the delay.
We did prep.
I'll ask for the very first caller. Thank you very much. Now, as a reminder, conference being recorded and will be posted public. So if you have a comment, please press the 1, record your name and affiliation clearly. Those are needed to introduce your comment. Our first now is from Joshua H. Your line is open. Hello, I wanted to expand on foundational Black American, a little bit more foundational Black American. Foundational is the lineage. Black
know that voice.
All things from the lineage that descended from chattel slaves. Foundational Black Americans are indigenous to the
You better not say nothing about free.
We are the statistical lineage of the Black race that built this country.
Devices
And
here
the only
today,
group of
brother.
Black people in the United States upon it being founded July of 1776. That's why foundational is synonymous with founding of the United States, because there was no United States until foundational Black America was built. The term foundational Black America typically identifies and encompasses all those labeled as Negro, mulatto, colored, freedmen, and indigenous prior to 1876. We have empowered the term Black. We don't want it to be removed, but we definitely want to make sure that we draw the line when it comes to other people from other nationalities that are of the Black race that adopt our name as Black. If we cannot use the term foundational Black American, I'm okay with being a Black American. I've been called it all my life. But if we're going to use Black American, we're going to have to make sure that we specify who Black Americans are. If that's too much to rehash, then I feel that adding foundational onto the term Black American will fill it up, and we will know from this day forward who a foundational Black American is. Those are the people that are indigenous to the United States. There wasn't no United States
And for
before
those hitting the
Black
streets,
Americans.
and I didn't get you the QR code, please inbox me.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking off this Saturday town hall and sharing your perspective.
I got you, Faye.
I'm ready. We're ready for our next caller.
Eve Henderson. Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I guess this is with regard to proposal 4. I'm a Black American, a Native Black American, descending from
I'm
people
tell y'all
who
we
were
showed up though.
and from people who were displaced and enslaved due to terrorism and flipped on the people of this land by the Europeans who colonized this country. The current designation of Black American for myself or people who share my lineage work and has worked is Blacks of other lineages by using it that kind of makes the waters muddy. I ask that if Black American is or remains an option, that other lineage Blacks have their own identifier, and if Black American is for all Blacks living, then Black people should have their own designation inside that umbrella by adding like a national or native, the Native Black American, national Black American, not a statement or a different place, or even a different. I think the public that the number of people, Black, white, and other, Black experience, but slavery, our designation should be the doubling down the district, and if we ever did that with English.
Can you hear me? We can. Oh, can you hear me now? Yes, sir. Okay. So, thanks for having me. I can trace my family to mid-1800s. To be exact, I can trace them to Hattiesburg in Jefferson Davis County, now known as Texas, Mississippi. My paternal grandparents, Madison and Dora White, were sharecroppers. My paternal great-grandparents, Fred and Emmeline Hunter, were laborers and homemakers. According to the 1910 census, Dora was the only one that could read and write. None of them had formal education, and between them, they had a total of 10 children, and none of their children had a formal education. My grandfather, Jacob Hunter, had a 7th grade education. My grandmother, Lily Mae Hunter, had an 8th grade education. According to a report by Jennifer Ball, chief architectural historian, Mississippi Department of Archives and History, titled Mississippi Equalization Schools, Modernization and Segregation, reports in 1934,
allowing our youth needs to not be addressed. ADOS should be our designation because it provides clarity and eliminates any opportunity for confusion. It can only be described as
describe the institution that a group, a specific group descended from. Either you descended from the institution of slavery in America or you did not. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Army. Thank you for sharing your thoughts today. And just real quick for everybody on the line today, you may see our pens moving up and down, or we're taking notes as we're sharing this feedback. So it's just a matter of being able to type as we're listening to. So I just wanted folks to know that. So thank you, Marvina. Appreciate it.
And we're ready for our next caller.
Jacqueline Clark. Hi, my name is Jacqueline Clark, and I live in San Diego, California, in that area. And my question today comes from what the proposal indicates. And this is supposed to be about what you want, how you want to be identified. So how I want to be identified and how I think the OMB should move forward in their recommendations. On my birth certificate, my parents are listed as Negro. So that's how I want to choose to be identified. If other people choose to be identified with something else, that's perfectly fine. However, Negro shouldn't be removed because some people find it offensive, but other people still choose to be identified as such. And if Negro, if this question is Negro already removed, because according to my research in 2013, the US Census brought Negro due to people being offended by it in the 2010 census. However, you did take notice of the folks who did, I think it was 56,000 people who did respond to the Negro. So if this is about personal preference and how people self-identify and based off of what's on our records historically and documents that came on before us, eliminating Negro and removing it is essentially erasure of a people, of a group of people who still exist, although a lot of their ancestors have passed on. Many people who still identify as Negro are still alive, and they're not even really able to participate in this conversation because, as you know, very few people are participating in comparison to the population. So more outreach, more other different methods of reaching people. The American survey that you do, I think, once a year to go out to more people. I think it's like 3.5 million people that are reached each year with that. There should be more people with purposeful intention to reach these populations of people who are saying they want one thing. And for people saying, oh, you should just classify all Black people under one category, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for represented as Negro. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for calling in. You can read more about our specific proposals on the Federal Register notice. As I mentioned, or as Karen Battle went over at the beginning, Negro is currently an optional term that can be used on forms, and the working group proposed striking that part from the definition, but it's just a proposal, and this is why we want to hear from folks just like you to understand how the public feels about these proposals. So thank you very much for calling in and joining the conversation. And with that, operator, we're ready to move to our next caller. All right.
Amory Hall. Good afternoon.
good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We can hear
My
you.
name is Valerie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Ball, and I'm from Alabama, where the identifier Negro has a very long history. First, I want to thank the OMB for holding this town hall and allowing the public the opportunity to voice our opinions and to participate in conversation regarding ethnic identifiers. I am here to advocates for the ethnic identifier of American Negro. The identifier Negro has been replaced with many terms, including Black American, African American, and as we have seen, this has caused reclassification of people who currently have Negro on their documents, such as their birth certificate. And this also has caused confusion with separating immigrants from non-immigrants. I submit that I did on my birth certificate.
Also, my parents have Negro on their birth certificate.
Being from Tuskegee, Alabama,
Where some of our most noted
civil rights champions hail from, they also classified themselves as Negroes. My short list is Rosa Parks, Lewis Adams, Booker T. Washington, and Sammy Young, who is a young
little-known activist who fought for the Negro vote.
In Alabama and was murdered in Tuskegee as a result. Removing Negro from the lexicon equals to an erasure of our history here in America. It negates the lives of our ancestors who fought in wars, built this country, and championed for the rights of the American Negro here in this country. It's quite distressing to me. I'm sorry, that's a 2-minute mark. You reached your 2-minute mark. I'm sorry. Okay, in conclusion, I feel that the exclusion of
Growth from the identifiers will be an erasure of a people who have had an impact on the American way of life.
and will be disrespectful to our ancestors. Thank you. Thank you, Valerie. We hear you and we thank you for taking the time to participate in Space Town Hall. We're ready for the next caller.
You can start at the year 1776 and go backwards, or you can start at the year 1776 and go forward to the very day. And you will find Foundation of Black Americans as a lineage, heritage, and culture has been the architect, the influencers, and the backbone of the United States of America. And the classification of Foundation of Black Americans covers it all. The designation of Foundation of Black would please have reached.
Thank you, Todd, very much for sharing your thoughts with us today. We very much appreciate it.
Brother, I'll go ahead and move to our next call.
Use yours. They don't have enough room.
Hi, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Hello?
Hello, Colleen? Hi, Colleen, we can hear you.
Oh, great. communities, despite that we're actually a very large community in the United States. And only recently, finally, when I applied to the University of California campuses, I was able to check an Armenian box under the MENA or SWANA category, which a bunch of students fought for, and it really made me feel seen and represented for the first time in my life on government forums. So, like that amazing community organizing win,
has really meant that our communities actually can get the resources that we need, which include, teaching our actual history and keeping our language, having our community centers and other resources, and to fight racism and for social justice. So we can't continue to be erased just like so much of our history often is. And I ask that you please count MENA in and include an Armenian checkbox for me to feel seen. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in today and giving us your perspective. We appreciate it. Thank you. Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Constance Gregory.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. Good afternoon, OMB. Thank you for hosting this town hall meeting. My name is Constance Gregory. I am 7th generation American freedman. My great-great-great-great-grandfather, Essex Spinks, and his wife, Julia, had 8 children. And 7 of them were born slaves. My great-great-grandmother, Lucinda, had to move her family from Mississippi to escape American terrorism and to have a better life for our family, better opportunity. And I just want to say that our contribution, our history in this country is very distinctive, and it's unparalleled. My ancestors fought and died in the Civil War to become free for their freedom. And so I stand on the shoulders and advocate for justice and redress. And I 100% agree that it should be a separate category. When my ancestors won the Civil War, we were made promises under Special Field Order 15 and also under the Freedmen's Build Act, which was reneged on by the United States government. So I want to continue on the fight and honor them by asking to be represented as an American freedman. I feel as though we should have a separate ethnic box under Black and African American racial classifications, and that box should be American freedman. I also would like to say that it's very frustrating to see immigrants come to this country, claim Blackness, and get opportunities that my ancestors had to fight and die for. I find it very disrespectful. And in closing, I just want to thank you guys for hearing me, hearing my comments, and thank you for having this meeting.
Thank you very much, Constance, for sharing your perspectives with us today.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Chris Edwards.
Hello. Thank you for your time. On February 29th, 1940, Hattie McDaniel made history as being the first Black person to win the Academy Awards in this country. So with that being said, she falls under the definition of a Black American, a person having origins to North America who descends from a free person of color or descendant of chattel slavery in North America, who was reclassified to Indian Negro, Negro, mulatto, colored, African American. That definition is important because we have different melanated people from around the globe that either come from the Caribbean American or continental Africa country that comes to this country and falls under our status of Black American, which is not correct term. Continental African is a person who has origins to the African continent or migrated to America from the African country. Caribbean American is a person who has origins to the Caribbean country or migrated to America from a Caribbean country. Now, when we visit their country, they don't go by the term Black. They go by whatever country they're from. Either is this Jamaican,
and stars to shine like the winners we are. We have learned a lot about ourselves as Black Americans, as a nation of people with a distinct culture. Terms are important. Major contributors to science and medicine. The first to make successful advances for American modern society, words of humans and human rights and civil injustice. The only people that have fought in every war, trailblazers and gold medal takers, the originators of everything hip, smooth, and cool. Let's improve our self-esteem by not classifying ourselves as freedmen, ADOs, etc., and claim our Black culture and identity. My argument to the ADOs and freedmen is that anyone can be both those terms. For example, technically Jamaica is in the Americas with an S, making them American slaves too. Freedmen is not a race, but a former circumstance. Black Americans should have their own box to check, as should everyone else, and it should be exclusively for Black Americans. The category should also include not only from Africa, but lineage from North America. A lot of Black Americans trace their lineage to this land. We cannot do flat Blackness to Africa because North Africa and the Middle East are white. So I also like to keep the Negro in the terminology. Most non-white immigrants do not identify as Black culturally. I would like to say there's no white without Black, whether good or bad. We have unique stories that shaped our nation. At this time, Democratic shills, church boule people, and other agent provocateurs are looking to change our name again without the consent of the people to push us off the land, just as Reverend Jesse Jackson did.
Minute mark.
Harrison.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me speak. And this is a monumental time, and I hope all Black American voices are heard. Don't change our name, claim our name. 100.
Thank you for calling in and giving us your perspectives on the proposals that we made. We appreciate it.
Operator, we'll move on to our next caller.
Roz Mickens.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you this afternoon for having this town hall. My name is Ross Mickens, and I want everyone to ponder the trademark number 9031069, filing date November 10, 2020. ADOS is about that serial number and monetizing a so-called lineage. I know because I was president of the ADOS DMV region, and we had organized in March of 2019 for the HR 40 hearing and at the Supreme Court for the Civil Rights of 1866 with Byron Allen that same year. We were independently organized and self-financed. The owner of that trademark did not organize with us and was absent at both major events. When Black Lives Matter founder Patrice Cullors had come out and purchased multi-million-dollar homes, that founder wanted to consolidate us by helicopter leadership and aggressive attempts to cannibalize our already established organizations that were set up for about 2 years prior, before starting the 501c4 ADOS AF organization. In 2020, those who were threatened to use that moniker ADOS were threatened with lawsuits and would not operate under her. Ironically, now they want to use that moniker. That is not a red flag, it's a stop sign. We now operate as our advocacy group, dmvfreedmen.org, for the lineage-based reparation, political education, and to be able to advocate. The Freedman name connects us to our honored, emancipated ancestors, including Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Callie Guy House, and the legal protections that were created for us. Socioeconomic and legal connections exist under the Freedman name, and that includes the Freedmen's Bureau Act, the Freedmen's Bank, and the Bureau of Freedmen Affairs. My younger brother was born in Freedmen's Hospital on Georgia Avenue in Washington, D.C. I recommend American Freedmen as a separate ethnic box under Black African American racial classification. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Roz, we thank you for taking time to participate in the town hall today.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Mark Misolio.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, OMB. I'm a Black American, and I'm in the Florida Grassroots Task Force member. Our Black American Grassroots team was a part of the survey pull-up around the country in 30 states. The majority of the people that we brought awareness to about our origins in America agree that Black American was an appropriate name for us and our ancestors. I currently have a 102-year-old great uncle in Mississippi. He still works in his garden. He lives off his garden. He lives by himself, and he drives. He agrees with Black Americans. And he's born in 1921. Thank God for the OMB. Give us an opportunity to bless our ancestors. We don't need to be called African American. We don't need to be called Freedman, Negro, ADOS, or SBA. Proud of Black America. Make the right decision. OMB, we love you.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your perspective, and thanks for sharing a little bit about your family too.
Operator, we'll go ahead and move to our next caller.
Anne Reeves.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, I am a foundational Black American, and I am a descendant of shattered slavery in these United States of America. I know no other country but these United States of America. This is my home. And yes, I am a foundational Black American. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in. And as we mentioned at the two previous town halls, this is an issue that we specifically raised in our Federal Register notice and asked for public comment and feedback on. So we really appreciate you and all the others today and at the previous town halls who have joined us to participate in this conversation. Thank you.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Sean Watson.
Hello, greetings. I'm not here representing any 503, 504, any corporation or any sort of organization, but the average working class American. I show my full support. Well, I won't say full. I show majority support for Proposal 3. I believe that it does have those aspects of delineation in it, and a lot of the callers are speaking that they want their own boxes. And from the proposals that I see, that one fits the best. The only thing I would update on that is it has the wording that says unless an agency determines potential benefit or agencies are encouraged to. That still may leave people just utilizing the minimum, call it the minimum aspect of it, and it will it kind of will do a disservice to the people that actually want to check those specific boxes. And I want to show 110% support for MENA. I grew up with one of my friends. His name was Tamer Amir. He was actually from Egypt, and he used to joke and say, "Hey, I'm more African than you." It was a little funny joke, but he was a great individual. And I spoke to him about this, and he would have always selected that box because he was forced to select white, and he didn't feel like that actually benefited his cultural practices. So I would make it best practice for them to use the detailed specifications. And also, I don't feel like it's necessary to strike Negro. We can just add it to the definition of Black/African American because that was mulatto color. We could just throw all of those into the definition and don't have to strike anything. And then we should definitely get rid of majorities and minorities because it creates this polar dynamic of that's still going on here in America. And if this is about moving forward, how we're going to correct the wrongs, I do not want anything attached to my direct ethnicity with slavery at all, whether it's ADOS or whether it's freedom, because my people are more than just emancipated or free slaves. And I got a quick question. Is this about the census or is this about reparations? Because it seems like a lot of these people are coming in with an ulterior motive. And I find that extremely disingenuous as an average working class Black American. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Sean, very much for your feedback. And as Bob said earlier, we specifically put a question in the Federal Register notice about this issue because we ourselves are trying to learn more about perspectives and views on this. So thank you all, everyone, for participating today.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Lassiter Speller.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Lassiter Speller, and I have seen the necessity for restructuring the designation of Black or African American on federal surveys and forms, both personally as a descendant of U.S. chattel slavery and professionally as a professor and psychophysiologist. Federal surveys or forms can collect data related to the descent of enslaved peoples by restructuring the category and subcategories currently used by the SPD 15. It is critically important to differentiate between those who are African immigrants or descended therefrom, and those who are descended from enslaved people groups living in this country specifically. There is much data that would suggest substantive statistical differences that are otherwise shrouded by the persistent use of racial categories. In a recent journal article on public health concerns, Kaw and colleagues in the 2021 paper have stated, the aggregation of data into these racial groups masks critical within-group differences and disparities, limiting the health and social services field's abilities to target their resources where most needed. When collecting and coding responses, the term American descendants of slavery should be used to disaggregate the data as it is succinct, precise, and clear. As citizens of the United States, American is readily identifiable in terms of our country of origin. Descendants draws a direct lineage to a specific ancestry, and slavery describes the potent institution that was critically formative for this nation's development and underscores the group from which we come. Following examples of previous and current nomenclature should be used to initially help identify American descendants of slavery, including colored, Negro, African American, or Black. Our distinction lies in the ability of the individual to trace their ancestry to someone belonging to that category coming from the enslaved population in these United States between 1776 and 1865. There should be collection as a detailed group identified as American Descendants of Slavery, or ADOS, within the Black or African American minimum category. Again, this will help identify members with both a certain lineage and nationality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Speller. Appreciate you calling in and sharing a little bit of the research too.
And we're ready for our next caller, operator.
Markel Howard.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Yes. I identify myself as Black American. I've traced my lineage back. In Toggleville, Alabama, on my mom's side, and then I also traced my lineage back to Monroeville, Alabama, on my father's side. I identify I think it should be a separate box for Black Americans. And I don't think that anybody from the diaspora should be in our business because we have built this country. If it wasn't for us, they wouldn't even be in this country. We provide them with opportunities. And then for them to provide us with disrespect, you know what I'm saying? Like that calls for delineation. Black Americans, we have our own culture. And we deserve reparations. And this should be lineage based. And for people who are trying to get into our business, they should be focused on going back home to repair their own countries. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much for sharing your feedback today.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Dr. Zenobia Myro, MD.
Good afternoon. Hello?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the OMB for this opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Zenobia Myro. I hail from Miami, Florida. And I'm advocating for the name to be changed to American Descendants of Chattel Slavery. The name speaks for itself. It exemplifies our unique contribution to America. It's quite specific. My lineage dates back to 1653 in this country. I was born prior to the Civil Rights Bill. I am intimately aware of our history. I have been through the evolution of our name changes in America. We've gone from colored, mulatto, Negro, Black, all of which are listed on my family's birth certificates. I witness the suffering of our people every day. I'd like to clarify exactly who my people are via specific data so we can improve our lives and eliminate the financial, health, and educational disparities that plague us. I would like the lineage to be American Descendants of Slavery, our race to be Black, and I'm also sending in writing supportive documentation. And with that, I land my plane and I yield the mic.
Well, thank you for flying our way today. We appreciate the comments, and we'll look forward to your written comments to the Federal Register. And we also just want to take a moment to encourage anyone else on the line who's interested in submitting written comments. We really appreciate that feedback also. Thank you.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Georgette Russell.
Hi, I'm Georgette Russell calling from New Jersey regarding proposals to revise Statistical Policy Directive number 15. We need to disaggregate American Descendants of Slavery on the 2030 census so that we as a nation can clearly see the economic and social position of this unique ethnic group. We have massive problems related to wealth inequality, and gathering disaggregated data is an imperative if we want to correct the racial wealth gap between white Americans and American Descendants of Slavery. In 2019, Pew Research found that over half of all Americans say race relations in the US are generally bad and are getting worse. Since correcting this issue is such an important concern to my fellow citizens, I present the outcomes I'd like to see for the SBD 15 questions. American descendants of slavery are a unique ethnic group within the global Black diaspora. The U.S. federal government should be focused on collecting data on descendants of American chattel slavery by creating the option for American descendants of slavery to distinguish ourselves as a unique ethnic group on the 2030 census. After chattel slavery ended, American descendants of slavery were known as Negro, colored, Black, and then African American. American descendants of slavery is the best term to describe this population because it is concise and clear about what it seeks to convey. It indicates our American nationality and our attachment to the institution of American chattel slavery. American descendants of slavery should be defined as citizens of America who have at least one genealogical link to American chattel slavery and previously self-identified as Black, African American, or Negro. American descendants of slavery should be included within the Black category as it allows us to identify with our ancestry and our race. We cannot fix what we cannot measure. Therefore, I urge the OMB to support this effort to advance racial equity by producing disaggregated data in all matters where American descendants of slavery are concerned. Thank you all for your time.
Lizette, we appreciate your comment today.
Operator, we'll go ahead and move to our next caller.
Cameron Williams.
Hello, my name is Cameron Williams, and I'm a member of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, and also a student at Governor State University here in the South Suburban Cook County, Illinois. The use of American descendant of slavery as an ethnic identifier can help to accurately recognize and address the distinct challenges and systematic inequalities that African Americans who descend from chattel slavery continue to face today. By identifying African Americans who descend from chattel slavery as a distinct ethnic group, policymakers and organizations can better tailor their programs and initiatives to meet the specific needs of our community. This can include targeted efforts to address disparities in wealth, education, health outcomes, and criminal justice reform. Additionally, it can help promote a more accurate understanding of the historical and ongoing impact of slavery and racism on this community, leading to greater awareness and advocacy for change. Overall, recognizing American descendants of slavery as an ethnic identifier is an important step towards acknowledging and addressing the unique experiences and needs of this community. I would like to express my gratitude to the working group at the White House OMB for their efforts to promote greater accuracy and inclusivity in ethnic identification. Your work can help promote greater equity and justice for African Americans who descend from chattel slavery.
Thank you for calling in. We appreciate your talk.
Operator, we'll go ahead and take our next caller.
Charles Alexander.
Hello, OMB. Thank you for hosting this town hall. I am Charles Alexander, president of the Anti-Negro Defamation League. I formerly served as a senior operations manager at the U.S. State Department and a deputy executive secretary at both the Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the White House. So hello again. The Anti-Negro Defamation League was created in 2022 in the state of Maryland as a nonprofit 501c3 to counter and stop the continued defamation, erasure, persecution, and misrepresentation of the Negro in all areas of people activity. Negroes have historically been classified, described, referred to as Negroes in this country for over 400 years due to its federal and state designation. In 2006, ABC News anchor George Stephanopoulos had a discussion with Alan Keyes, who emphasized the necessity to recognize people's individual ethnicity and heritage. However, in 2016, President Obama, without specific logical explanation, removed the word Negro from federal law, thereby removing the ancestral birthright of the American Negro. It is imperative that the term Negro be appropriately identified and accepted in all forms of federal law and legislation. Specify the Negro and their descendants After all, the term Negro was used to describe our ancestors in Africa during the Middle Passage, during the institution of slavery, by U.S. government officials during emancipation, including by President Lincoln when signing Military Special Field Order 15 after the conclusion of the Civil War. There should be no stigma attached to the word Negro, as mistakenly interpreted by President Obama and others. Rather, it should be a source of cultural pride with a rich history. For this reason, I am requesting that OMB urge President Biden to rescind President Obama's flawed decision and reinstate the word Negro back into federal law in order to protect our people's lineage, legacy, and existence as American Negroes. Thank you.
We appreciate you calling in today, Charles. Thank you.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Josh Gray.
Hello, OMB. Thank you for having this town hall. Just wanted to say that according to Pew Research, 21 out of every 100 people who are classified racially as Black or African American are either immigrants or children of immigrants. From 2020 to 2060, Pew projects that the Black immigrant population will outpace the U.S. born Black population growth by 61 percentage points. When we analyze socioeconomic factors, you see U.S. born Blacks are significantly less likely to have a college degree or higher, to live in a married household, and more likely to have lower median income, amongst other disparities. What Pew, a private corporation, was attempting to do was using the unsatisfactory term U.S. born Black to collect data and analyze socioeconomic differences between American freedmen and non-American freedmen. The primary factors behind these disparities stem from the legacy of U.S. chattel slavery, Black codes, government-sanctioned discrimination, and other atrocities that American freedmen families have faced for generations without repair or remedy. The legacy is expressed clearly and concisely through the ethnic identifier American freedmen because it acknowledges the challenges faced as well as the determination of our population group and that we've demonstrated in saving the country and gaining freedom from slavery. A quote from the National Park Service made by President Lincoln reads, quote, "Without the military help of the Black freedmen, the war against the South could not have been won. For all these reasons and more, we desperately need the OMB to create a specific category separate from race or aggregated racial terms such as Negro, Black, or African, and we need that term to be American freedmen. Failure to do so results in a continued ethnocide of our population group, while other groups get recognition of their unique peoplehood. It means the data collected will continue to be inadequate and incapable of painting a clear picture of where the group has been or how it is trending. I just want to say thank you to everybody calling in, and thank you, OMB, again, for trying to get this right.
We appreciate your feedback, Josh. Thank you.
Operator, we'll take our next call.
Renee Mason.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I would like to elect to go with option 3, choosing to be identified as ethnicity. And I believe our ethnicity should definitely be Black American. I like to pull from my own lineage. My third-time great-grandfather, Henry Bacon, he was of the graduating class of Howard University back in the late 1800s. He was also a postmaster, and he made great accomplishments throughout his whole entire life, and he can be found on the 1870, 1880, and 1900 census as listed as his identifier was Black. I believe that under the identity of Black, he certainly made a great legacy for himself. And I think that us having to be reduced or be classified as a enslaved descendant certainly reduces the legacy of my third-time great-grandfather, and it takes away from all of the accomplishments that he made. So
I personally would like for our designation to remain as Black American, which is a person having origins to North America who descend from a free person of color or descended of chattel slavery in North America who were reclassified to Indian Negro, Negro, mulatto, colored, or African American. I would like for people who are from the continent of Africa to have their own designation, continental African, which describes a person who has origins to the African continent or migrated to America from an African country. Caribbean should have their own designation, which describes a person who has origins to a Caribbean country or migrated to America from a Caribbean country. I do not wish to be identified as a freed or emancipated slave, nor do I wish for myself to be identified as an acronym or something that was started online as an acronym a couple of years ago. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Renee, for taking the time out of your day to come and talk with us today. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
DJ Gardner.
Hello, I'm sorry. TJ Gardner, thank you for allowing me to speak.
We can hear you.
I'd like to begin and say there were two races, Black and white, when the United States of America was formed by the Founding Fathers. With that said, there is no flat Blackness, since a lot of Black immigrants have came to the United States voluntarily from other countries. Moreover, the ancestors that were brought here to North America forcibly through the transatlantic slave trade and were made property from an institution the Founding Fathers created called chattel slavery, causes their descendants to not have a connection with the continent of Africa because of the centuries we have been on this U.S. soil. Furthermore, the United States of America is my home, despite the systemic injustice and racial oppression received by this American government. But most of all, the United States of America is my home because of the free labor, sweat, blood, and the bones buried in this United States soil. Finally, I prefer to designate as an American descendant of slavery, ADOS, to set apart from other Black folk who do not come from the lineage of chattel slavery. And I also like to mention real quickly, designating yourself as ADOS is not saying that you are a slave. It's referencing the institution slavery because America's wealth was built from the institution, chattel slavery. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing your comment.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Dr. Latasha Gibson.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay. So I'm Latasha Gibson, and I'm representing the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, and I'll go ahead and start my statement. Given the core dependencies and root causes for disparities within the U.S., the government must disaggregate to discern the effect of past targeted and exclusionary policies directed towards those that descended from the institution of slavery. Such data is not fully captured in the current racial categories. Although in deliberation, both the primary defendant and plaintiff in the case of affirmative action related to the 14th Amendment have verified that the lineage of American descent of slavery is too integrated and specific to race to be considered for admission. However, one's immigration status was not race specific and therefore could be considered. This distinction begs the question, if the U.S. is a nation of immigrants, what of those sold and trafficked humans that built the foundation of the U.S. economy? This dichotomy is a conundrum for a nation that claims everyone should be equal. Therefore, it is morally imperative that the OMB does what is fair and proper in establishing a new ethnic designation for ADOS. Why ADOS? The designation is clear, concise, and unambiguous. American identifies our national origin based on generational presence, to the exception of the U.S. government. Descendants identifies who we are and slavery recognizes the institution of chattel slavery that is unique to our lineage. Freedmen is too ambiguous, and the borough, now defunct, only operated in the Confederate and bordering states, while slavery was nationwide, even in states that banned slavery. Finally, American descendants of slavery should be defined as those who trace their lineage back towards the institution of slavery through the paternal familial side, the maternal familial side, or both under the umbrella category of Black Americans. This concludes my statement, and I thank the OMB for this opportunity to speak publicly.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. Appreciate you taking the time today to call in and share your perspective with us.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Eric Christian Ramsey.
Thank you. I want to make a few points and disprove the idea that there was quote unquote white freedmen and a few other things. So in my 2 minutes, I want to start by saying I am American freedman on both sides. My maternal line descends from Nigeria and my paternal line descends from Egypt, right? And then when I talk about that there was no white freedmen, let me bring up a quote from, we're literally going back in time and having a conversation that was had after, in the Reconstruction period, during the Reconstruction period. So here's a quote. I should be glad to be informed from senators. I should be glad to be informed why this race distinction is made in the amendment. And keep in mind, the Freedmen Bank definition said persons heretofore held in slavery in the United States or their descendants. And so it says, if there was a lawful depositor who cannot prove that he or she in whole or in part was of African descent, why should a discrimination be made against them? Mr. Sherman, the answer is that the law itself, which created the institution, made the distinction. No one really is entitled to the benefits of the law, and no one was entitled to deposit money in the Freedmen's Bank by express provision except he was of African descent. And then they have Mr. Beck. I hope these words will not be stricken out, if for no other purpose than to make it perfectly certain what is the intention of the proposed law. The original act limited depositors to persons of African descent, and so did 1 or 2 amendments of the act which were afterwards made. Subsequently, and all the people who say that there is white freedmen, that either they say it's the Freedmen Bureau, that there is white freedmen in the Freedmen Bureau based on like records, those were refugees. If you look at the Freedmen's Bank, they say there was records of white freedmen in the Freedmen's Bank. And he literally says subsequently a number of white men became depositors and ran the bank and ran it to destruction, which is at the bottom of all the trouble we are in now. If the words in whole or in part of African of descent be stricken out, I hope, if the whole or in part be stricken out, if the words in whole or in part of African descent be stricken out and the phrase lawful depositor retained, it will be a question whether the very men who brought all the trouble upon the bank, who were themselves the principal beneficiaries, while the original colored depositors were ruined and only got 62% of the whole. And then he goes on to say, the only reason why the United States is in equity bound to make good the deposits is because those colored people believe that it was a government institution. And then he says, the only people we make it good to the colored people, and then we have done our duty.
You're at your 2-minute mark, sir?
Yeah, let me just finish with this last part. The Creek Freedmen, the same day we started the OMB town hall on the 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern, at 2:30 Eastern, the Creek Freedmen were in court fighting for their rights of citizenship back. So we have to understand the divine nature of what we're doing right here. Anyone who's trying to strike out freedmen for American freedmen, they're trying to strike it out for the Creek freedmen, for the rest of the tribal freedmen. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing that. And we will be sure to take that back to the working group.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Bernard Scott.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Bernard Scott, and I am a PhD candidate in the biochemistry department at the University of Utah, and would like to express support for a new demographic designation of American descendants of slavery within governmental and census forms within the U.S. under the minimum category of Black/African American. I support this because it helps me work towards making someone like me not being the only one in such a program by allowing those of us with an enslaved ancestor on either the paternal or maternal side or both of our families to be accounted for in a meaningful way, as our unique legacy in this country not only includes unpaid physical labor and specific harms done to us via American policies that are directly linked to the institution and legacy of U.S. chattel slavery, but also includes very aggressive civil and human rights advocacy. The ever-changing composition within the broader Black/African American community means that the term Black is no longer specific to ADOS, and nor does it capture class differences primarily based on lineage. And those who think it is difficult to differentiate us from other Black/African American identifying groups need not worry. The Smithsonian highlights how the U.S.'s Black immigrant population was to the left of the decimal point before 1965. And my father was born in 1954, Savannah, Georgia. He was identified as Negro on his birth certificate, while I see how other currently Black identifying individuals from elsewhere were usually identified by nationality in census forms. Both historical record and contemporary data clearly shows how those so-called Negroes, Blacks, and colored folks who descended from the institution of American chattel slavery were specifically targeted for adverse outcomes in both the Jim Crow South and beyond, even relative to those from other non-white demographics, including most Black immigrants. I hope that the OMB uses this opportunity to assist the least of us in getting what we deserve and need from enhanced public policy derived from more accurate and precise data that is better able to capture our condition and corresponding needs. And I thank you for letting me share this.
Thank you, Bernard. Thanks for joining us today to share your thoughts with us.
Before we continue with our calls, we're going to take a 5-minute break right here, and I please implore and encourage everyone who has called in and is waiting to make their comment to please do not hang up. Stay on the line. We will be back in 5 minutes and resume comments at that time. Again, if you are on the line and have called in, we do want to hear and have you share your perspectives. Do not hang up. We do not want you to get out of line. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but freed people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have Black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and Black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations.
They had no idea that that church I was running by every day was something my grandfather established.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total Black population in California is about 2.6 million. And then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed. and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Overnight, it's like, oh, it's no longer the quarters, now it's Lincoln Heights. Oh, so now we get to use Abraham Lincoln for our name. And you think about all the other people that they could have used, but they picked Lincoln. And I think that's sort of a stereotypical of what they do.
There wasn't any black restaurants. As far as black business and weed, it wasn't none.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Why has it been easier for other groups than us?
Because of anti-black hatred.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR room, don't tune in.
Where do we go from here, chaos or community? Where Dr. King identifies those whose lineage dates to U.S. chattel slavery as the quote-unquote descendants of slaves. The word American added to the beginning of the phrase signifies where the slavery and subsequent discriminatory practices occurred for this subgroup. The group of people who identify as American descendants of slavery would be a subgroup within the minimum racial category of Black/African American. However, I also recommend that the name of the Black African American racial classification be modified to Black. Other ethnic groups within the Black racial classification would be identified by their country of origin, i.e. Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ghanaian, etc., as well as their number of generations of American descendants of slavery. Governmental agencies can begin to collect data on this group such that policies can be crafted to meet their unique needs. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Patrick, for calling in and sharing your views.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller, please.
Mr. Ali.
Greetings. This is Mr. Ali from the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. I'm advocating for the use of American freedmen, but I'd like to start with some points of clarification. Number one, the racial nomenclatures of African, Negro, Black, and Colored have been with us since our ancestors' early contact with Europeans. Till this day, the United States, via the OMB and Census Bureau, state and local agencies, as well as private institutions, provide for the self-identification of Black, African American, or Negro, as has been previously stated. We at the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen have never suggested removing or replacing anyone's racial identity. Obviously, people are free to racially identify as they choose. Number two, however, the descendants of those emancipated in 1865 or earlier have never had an actual ethnic name of record, and thus the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen propose a new ethnic category rooted in the national emancipation of our ancestors via the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. This will provide for accurate record keeping, collection, and the presentation of data for the population group who has a very unique relationship to and plight in the United States. The term American freedman is one that was pulled from the annals of American history and law. First used by the United States government in 1863 during the Civil War, with the establishing of the American Freedmen's Inquiry Commission, whose reports and recommendations led to the establishment of the Freedmen's Bureau and Bank. This term, American freedman, is comprised of nationality and status in relation to this nation, the constitutional standing and reputation of as a formerly enslaved people. Freedman is a righteous, honorable, and noble title that over 200,000 Black men fought, died, and killed for to ensure the liberty of themselves, their families, and their progeny, so that we can be here today to either honor and revere them or disrespect them, their free national name, and their legacy out of ignorance. So I am advocating for American freedmen as a separate ethnic category under the Black or African American racial classification. With that, I say thank you for your time.
Ali, thank you for your feedback. Appreciate the comment on keeping your racial identity, but then also adding the ethnic category of American freedmen.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Naheem Way.
Greetings. I am Naheem Way, President and co-founder of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. American freedmen has been used to recognize those emancipated from slavery in this country as its own ethnic designation in the past. Because Reconstruction was short-lived for American freedmen, 12 years approximately, usage of the term fell out of favor for terms more suited to and rooted in the institution of slavery, namely Black, Colored, and Negro. Now, someone can migrate from Africa or the Caribbean and will be classified as Black/African American, which blurs the identity of our unique American ethnic group. In comparison, Reconstruction for Black Indian freedmen lasted until 1979, 113 years. These groups were not manipulated by the lost cause teachings of the Daughters of the Confederacy in their public schools as we were for generations, and therefore, they retained not only an understanding of the status, but also the name freedman, and because of such, in the present day, used as ethnic identifiers names such as Cherokee freedmen, Chickasaw freedmen, Choctaw freedmen, etc. American freedmen is the perfect disaggregate term for our specific population group. American freedmen, due to its legal and historical precedent, would most likely be able to survive any legal challenges, while other proposed recommendations, which began as hashtag acronyms, started only a few years ago as Twitter groups, likely would not. I recommend American freedmen as a separate ethnic box under the Black/African American racial classification. It is the only sound choice. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in to share some information on the history of the term American freedmen. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that, operator, we'll move to our next caller.
Mr. Harris.
Hello. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Hello, I'm Simeon Harris, a human resources professional with a focus in DEI program design. I'm a father of 3 young children. I'm a husband. I'm an avid volunteer for the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, where I serve as compliance director. I'm in complete support of efforts to disaggregate groups within the Black race, specifically for those people who descend from U.S. chattel slavery. I believe the name that best describes us is American descendants of slavery. Our lineage was the determining factor in the continued enslavement of my ancestors. At the time, enslavement was their only birthright, whether it be grandfather clauses, Black codes, or the Homestead Act. Our lineage has been the basis of our exclusion, and exclusion that continues today. We are here asking you, the OMB, to recognize that same lineage, our ethnicity, in government data. In human resources and DEI work, increased access to disaggregated ethnicity data will provide considerable insight when developing and to best measure programs or initiatives around equity, inclusion, and belonging. I descend from slavery right here in Georgia. My family has seen firsthand what happens when the government doesn't step in to ensure the humanity of all Americans is recognized. I am an American descendant of slavery. I look forward to checking that box. And thank you all for the gracious way that you have conducted these town halls. We appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you, Simeon, for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Devontae Maxey. Devontae, please check your mute button. I will move on. Anna Gasparian, your line is now open.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Great. My name is Anna Gasparian. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region, the largest member-based Armenian American grassroots advocacy organization in the U.S. We join other prominent MENA and Armenian American organizations in calling for the addition of a MENA checkbox with an emphasis on the need to include an Armenian classification subcategory checkbox within this category. Armenian Americans overwhelmingly support census classification and are in the top 3 largest MENA populations in this country, numerically and historically. We believe the inclusion of an Armenian checkbox as subcategory of a MENA checkbox is imperative because the Armenian community has not only had a history of marginalization within the U.S., but continues to be overlooked as a population, thus resulting in the denial of its rights and the benefits of census classification and representation. We welcome these town hall discussions organized by OMB and urge you to ensure the inclusion of a MENA checkbox with an Armenian subcategory checkbox on the new U.S. Census classification form. We will be submitting an official letter on this matter through OMB's Commons platform. Thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you for calling in today, and we look forward to receiving your written comments as well.
Operator, We'll take our next call.
Qadir Abdul Salam.
Hey, good afternoon. I am Qadir Abdul Salam from Jersey. And as a Black American who has ancestry to the U.S. chattel slavery, I believe the current race and ethnicity data categories do not accurately capture and or reflect my ethnicity. I believe Black Americans who has lineage to U.S. chattel slavery should be classified as foundational Black Americans. Every term that is currently being used now are problematic. I've talked to Caribbeans, Africans, and even white North African Arabs who say that they are either African Americans, people of color, Negro, and descendants of slaves. So with all that being said, I believe foundational Black American is the way to go. And thank you very much for hearing my comments.
Qadir, thank you very much for calling in and participating today.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Tia McDuffie.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tia. I am a civil engineer residing in New York City. My personal recommendation to the OMB is to have the term foundational Black American included as a unique ethnic group within the Black race. This term, in my opinion, is the most accurate designation for our ethnic group, just based on its precise verbiage alone. The term foundational would indicate the length of our lineage on this land having existed since and in many cases before it became what we now know to be the United States of America. Black would indicate our race, and American would indicate our nationality. Our history, culture, generational experiences, whether they be progressive or challenging, have been unique to us. And it should not and cannot be shared, co-opted, or confused with any other group. So again, my personal recommendation to the OMB is to have the term foundational Black American included as a unique ethnic group within the Black race. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time and for sharing your recommendation. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller.
Charlene Bradshaw.
Hello.
Hi, Charlene.
Hi, my name is Charlene Bradshaw, and I would like to be classified as foundational Black American because my family lineage is from those who survived U.S. chattel slavery. I would like a box on the census that represents my family's lineage of being here from the inception of this country. Foundational Black American is my designation of choice because it provides an ethnic distinction from other Black people here in the United States. I also think that we need a soul category. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. We appreciate your comment and feedback today.
Operator, we'll take our next caller now. Thank you.
Elizabeth Henry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So I'm calling today to discuss why American descendants of slavery should be the new designation for formerly known Negroes or Black people. I descend from slavery here in the state of Georgia as well. I heard another gentleman saying the same thing. And American descendants of slavery is an important term because it marries our past with our present and also our future. It designates us as American. It also shows that our lineage is of slavery and the contemporary that we are the descendants. And disaggregating our data is important because we need to know where we stand. We need to know what our financials look like. We need to know what our lives look like as those descendants, as the people who built this country and who came here in chains and allowed for this country to become the superpower that it has become. What has become of us? And the only way to know that is to create a separate designation for us. I've heard a number of other terms, but if you look at ADOS, it is the most poignant one. And I thank you guys very much for hearing me today. I thank you so much for your time and for having this meeting.
Thank you for calling in and joining the conversation on it. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Deanna Toombs.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Hi, my name is Tiana Toombs, and I am in full support for the ethnic designation of American descendants of slavery. American descendants of slavery is the most clear, concise, and consistent way to describe our group. American identifies where we are, similar to how the 1950 census added American to the Indian option to distinguish from people born in India. Descendants identifies people who come from specific ancestors, and slavery identifies a specific group of people we descend from. The first six U.S. censuses used slave, so the term American descendants of slavery shows a connection to those ancestors. Freedmen was used when Congress passed the Freedmen's Bureau Act of 1865 and 1866, but the efforts with this term died when Congress dismantled the act several years later in 1872. The U.S. institution of freedmen lasted 7 years, while the U.S. institution of slavery lasted over 7 generations, or 246 years. The last remaining freedman, Peter Mills, died in 1972, while there are still tens of millions of American descendants of slavery in the U.S. today. I believe all Black Americans should be able to identify with their specific group. For American descendants of slavery, that means ancestry, but for many Black immigrants, that means nationality. And I would like to leave you with a quote from my esteemed president of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, where she said, she said the term ADOS would allow us to be, for the first time in modern history, fully acknowledged as our whole selves, to be truly seen when it comes time to make decisions that guide federal and local policies, as well as institutional practices. And that is from Yvette Carnell, ADOS Advocacy Foundation President. And I would just like to leave you with a quote from Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur from Louisville Metro Council and ADOS Advocacy Foundation Outreach Director, when he said, "This is not divisive, it's decisive. We need to be decisive about our people, decisive about our problems, and decisive about our policies." Thank you so much for hearing me out and having so much patience. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kiana, and thank you for your feedback that American descendant of slavery would be your choice designation.
And operator, we'll take our next caller now.
Juliet Rankins.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, I am requesting that the OMB use the ethnic designation of American descendants of slavery when data is collected on the group formerly known as African American. This will facilitate specific policies being made for this group and an accurate picture of who this group is in America, the American descendants of slavery. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet, for your views.
Operator, we'll move to our next call.
Keith Hoskin.
Good afternoon. My thanks to the OMB and to the Public Working Group for this opportunity to be heard. I am calling to voice my support for the inclusion of the term foundational Black American as an identifier of record for those of us who are the descendants of the survivors of American chattel slavery. We are the inheritors of a very unique and specific lineage, one that is in fact foundational to the very creation of the United States of America, as it was the Black chattel slaves and no other group who built this country from scratch and for free. We therefore deserve to have an ethnic designation that fully captures, reflects, and honors that very specific lineage and heritage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us today.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller now.
Larry Riley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
All right, thank you for having me. I support American descendants of slavery, ADOS, as an ethnic designation under the Black/African American category on the U.S. Census. It's easy to understand, no confusion, and no history lesson needed. My grandmother, who is still alive today, was born in Jonesville, Georgia. Have you ever heard of Jonesville, Georgia? No, Have you ever heard of Lockheed Martin and Dobbins Air Force Base? The land that those government entities sit on today used to be Jonesville, a thriving trolley stop and community that comprised of mostly Black citizens of Marietta and Smyrna, who were former slaves and employees of the Sibley Gardner Plantation, where Lockheed is today. My grandma's birth certificate says Jonesville. It does not say Marietta. She describes Jonesville as a thriving Black town similar to the popular Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. In the early 1940s, the community was pushed off the land by the government to make room for World War II infrastructure. All that remains today in Jonesville is the Jonesville Cemetery and my family's church, Mount Sinai Baptist Church, which was uprooted from Jonesville and moved to Lemon Street, where it resides today in Marietta, Georgia. If my people were able to keep that land, no telling how many Black-owned businesses would be there today. No telling how much Black wealth would have been created and passed down. As you can see how the institution of slavery is connected to my life today. And that's why it's imperative that the descendants of U.S. chattel slavery have our own category on the census and other government forms. This is why I support ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, as the ethnic designation to describe my lineage. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Larry, for sharing a bit of your personal history with us, and thank you for sharing your views and perspectives with us as well. Thank you.
Operator, we'll take our next caller now.
Nicholas Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicholas Johnson, a member of the American Descendants of Slavery Advocacy Foundation, and my recommendation to the OMB is for those of us who descend from the institution of U.S. chattel slavery to be recognized as ADOS. ADOS is the only term that truly captures both our ethnicity and lived experience. American describes who we are, is the land our ancestors helped to build for free and made immense contributions economically, politically, and culturally. And we are, in fact, the descendants of those slaves. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. clearly states who we are in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, where he asks the following, who are we? And replies, we are the descendants of slaves. You can also find the term slaves used in U.S. Census records dating back to 1790. And in researching my family history on Ancestry, I recently discovered a fifth great-grandmother who is not listed by name, but referred to as Black slave. I can draw a direct line from her to my paternal grandmother, my father, and myself, making it clear that I descend from ancestors who were slaves in the U.S. It is also my lived experience that serves as an expression of what it means to be ADOS, from my grandparents being redlined to me growing up in the New York City housing projects and seeing no economic opportunities as a result, are all the residual effects of being an American descendant of slavery. While the term freedman does not describe who we are, nor does it capture our shared lived experience. And grouping us in with Black immigrants who largely immigrated to the U.S. post-1965 does not properly capture us. I sincerely urge the Office of Management and Budget to consider ADOS as our new ethnic identifier. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Nicholas. I really appreciate you sharing your feedback as well as sharing a little bit about you and your family's lived experience.
Operator, we'll take our next comment.
Sonny Gray.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
All right, thank you. I want to start off by asking, my simple question is, how far Black do you go? I could trace my lineage back to the late 1700s. All ancestors are labeled as Black, Negro, or mulatto. We have our own distinct culture. You cannot separate a people from their culture. Haitian people have Haitian culture. Jamaican people have Jamaican culture. Black Americans have Black culture. We have a Black entertainment television network. We have historically Black colleges. We have the Black Panthers. We have a Black liberation movement. We have always stood on the Blackness. As James Brown said, I am Black and I'm proud. It is time for us to hold our ground on Blackness and to provide other boxes for other people to check when they come here, such as Caribbean American and Continental African. We also have a beautiful Black American heritage flag created by Melvin Charles and Gleason T. Jackson that represents us as a people. So I'm just asking for the OMB to do right. We're making these designations moving forward. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Johnny, for sharing your perspective on this important issue. Thank you.
And with that, operator, we'll move to our next comment.
Thomas, your line is open. Thomas.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Yes, I'm a Black American, and I have ancestors that were enslaved, as well as free inhabitants who were classified as Black per the U.S. Census and slave schedules as early as 1790. The fact that it's Black Americans on this call pleading to a panel for the right to be recognized and distinguished from melanated immigrants in a country their ancestors built is indicative of the continued struggles and ethnocide of a particular lineage of people, Black Americans. To allow an immigrant class to be included in that history based solely on the basis of looking like us is just lazy and flat out disrespectful. Immigrants have always had a box to check, and it is marked other, accompanied by a line to fill out their country of origin. I recommend that the Black American classification be specific to the lineage of people that it is already attached to. And in closing, I'll add that no acronym groups or failed ideologies such as Freedmen, FBAs, or ADOS should ever be considered as our classification in this country. We are not slaves. We are not going to reduce our ancestors to being nothing but slaves. They were more than that, and they're documented on this landmass. And I'll end right there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Thomas. Operator, we'll take our next caller.
LaShawn Holmes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm LaShawn. I'm a Black American. I was looking at the current definition of Black American on the category, and it says a person having origins in any of the Black racial groups of Africa. Terms such as Haitian or Negro can be used in addition to Black or African American. As the previous caller had stated, now this was probably, accurate prior to, but we have a completely different ethnicity from, Haitians, Puerto Ricans, and just other people within the Black racial category. And that's also why I feel that we should be recognized by our ethnic group and our ethnic identifiers. But just to reiterate, my suggested definition for Black American should say a person having origin to North America who descends from a free person of color or descendants of chattel slavery in North America who were reclassified to Indian Negro, mulatto, colored, African American, and on some census it just says B for Black. Also, I feel that continental African should be defined as a person who has origins to the African continent or migrated to America from an African country. Caribbean Americans should be defined as a person who has origins to a Caribbean country or migrated to America from a Caribbean country. And personally, I feel because the racial categories are so broad, that those suggested definitions will help to separate us by our ethnic group, to help as far as when we use different forms to take statistics within this country, going over data, figuring out which programs, funding. Okay, thank you. I'll end there. I appreciate the call.
Well, thank you, LaShawn, for sharing those suggested definitions. We will be taking that back to the working group.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller.
Shante Bernstein.
Hello. My proposal for how our unique groups should be identified is as follows. For racial classification, I would like to see Black/African American defined as a person having origins in any of the original people of the African continent and globe. And for ethnic classification, I would like to see American freedmen defined as a descendant of persons emancipated from slavery in the United States. I will also ask that trademark acronyms such as FBA and ADOS are not included as a classification. No one person, corporation, or foundation can ever own a group of people. I thank you for considering my recommendation.
Thank you, Shante. Appreciate you taking the time on your Saturday to call in to participate in this town hall.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Brandy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hello to the OMB panel, and thanks for allowing me the opportunity to speak and have my opinions heard regarding this very important and sensitive topic. My name is Brandy Gooseby, and I'm Black American. Carter G. Woodson, who is considered by many to be the father of Black History Month as a result of the creation of Negro Achievement Week in 1925, once said, "If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." I believe this is exactly what is currently happening under the 1997 standards. Black Americans have a unique experience and should not be grouped in with all other melanated people because there is no such thing as flat Blackness, just like others supporting the addition of MENA believe there is no such thing as flat whiteness. Black Americans should have a specific category that allows us to be differentiated from others. This is why I am in support of increasing racial and ethnic diversity by updating the current definition, terminology, and question format to easily allow for disaggregation of data that could be used to allocate program and initiative benefits. I think this can be achieved by creating separate categories for melanated individuals, with one specific to Black Americans and the other specific to Africans or those that come from the Caribbean, rather than reclassifying us as the political status freedmen or American descendants of slaves or anything else. The creation of an African category or Caribbean with details such as Jamaican, Ethiopian, Haitian would enable other melanated individuals to accurately represent their race and ethnicity while allowing Black Americans to continue to use Black as our race and ethnicity, since this is something that is tied to our ancestors, history, and culture. We have already been reclassified as Black, Negro, Colored, Mulatto, according to my ancestors' census records, and African American. So I hope the OMB knows that reclassifying us as a political status or ADO and continuing to group all melanated people under Black or African American would be contributing to the exact thing that Carter G. Woodson and his colleagues were trying to prevent when they created Negro Achievement Week. Thanks again for allowing me to speak.
Brandy, thank you for joining us today and joining in the conversation. We appreciate it.
Operator, we'll take our next call.
Constance Deering.
Hi, my name is Constance Deering. I am a foundational Black American, and that is what I refer to myself as. And I think that name is unique and specific to the lineage of foundational Black Americans in this country. This is my home, and I would like and love for that term to be uniquely categorized for this unique lineage and ethnic group. Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to participate today.
Operator, we'll take our next call.
Candace Davis. Please check
Hello,
if you
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. I wish for foundational Black American to be the legal term for my lineage, which is for the descendants of American slaves. The term African American is no longer specific enough due to this country's changing demographic. Foundational Black American is a specific term that delineates us from other groups in the African diaspora, like African and Caribbean immigrants, and their children who are born in America. Foundational Black Americans need specific distinction because we are foundational to this country and have a specific culture, and we're a unique ethnic group. I don't want to see my lineage erased. There have been a lot of callers speaking for an organization to be the legal name for my lineage. This is a dues collecting organization, so it's no different than asking for an organization like the NAACP to be the legal name for my lineage. Would you all put NAACP on those federal forms? I really hope not. In closing, Foundational Black American is the best term for my lineage, the descendants of American slaves who built this country. Thank you for letting me speak.
Candace, thanks for joining us today and sharing your perspective.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller now.
Elisa Span.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can.
Okay, let's say that. Okay, my name is Alita. I'm calling from California. Thank you for allowing the public to weigh in on this important discussion. I don't like speaking in public, but this is important, so I'll be brief. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. asked and answered, who are we? We are the descendants of slaves. I've listened to all of these sessions that you guys have had, including this one today, and there are ADOS who are much more articulate than I am in how they relate the data and facts of our existence in America. So I'd like to just make a few points that I implore you to note when reviewing these comments. One, there is 100% agreement that disaggregation is necessary. Two, slavery and slave were the common thread and the common terms used by all of the commenters. There were a lot of words used around those terms, but the main ingredient in those salads was slavery and slaves. For almost 2 decades now, the founders of the now founders of the ADOS Advocacy Foundation took up the fight, and for almost 10 years, the term used by Dr. Martin Luther King. This is not a newly requested delineation. I ask that you go to adosfoundation.org for more facts and data regarding our economic condition, and note the tens of thousands of people nationwide who are fighting for the ADOS designation. By 2053, ADOS will be a wealthless group, not all Blacks in America, not POC, not BIPOC, not underrepresented communities, ADOS. I am an American descendant of slavery. It's my firm belief that the ADOS designation is the only way forward for the survival of my ethnicity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alisa, for sharing your points with us today.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Tiffany Kuo, Los Angeles.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good afternoon, members of the OMB. My name is Tiffany Quarles, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm calling in today regarding your proposal for the Black/African American category. I've listened to both town halls this week, and I believe it's clear from the public comments that the common theme that's been expressed is that the OMB should recognize Black Americans who descend from U.S. slavery with an official category. I concur with this sentiment wholeheartedly. Of course, several different monikers have been proposed, but I ask that you please stick with common sense and do not adopt any monikers that have been created on social media. These terms are not used in the broader community and will cause more confusion among our population. Plus, no one knows that the majority of African Americans will embrace these acronyms as ethnic identities. Please do not impose any identity on us, but respect how the majority of us already self-identify, and that is African American, which has been in the popular lexicon for decades. With your current proposal, you have it as Black or African American, and the problem is that Black and African American are not interchangeable or synonymous. Black is a racial category that encompasses all people of Black African descent, regardless of origin, and African American is the specific ethnicity of Black Americans who descend from U.S. slavery. This is widely accepted in the Black community, even though your current proposal does not reflect it. I would suggest you update your current proposal to have Black as a standalone racial category similar to how white is a standalone racial category, and have African American as a subcategory of Black, with a parentheses clarifying that African American is defined as descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S. I believe the OMB should update their current proposal to make this minor change. This simple clarification to your current proposal will satisfy the many requests for U.S. slavery descendants to have an official, federally recognized category, and most importantly, reflect how the most of us self-identify. The state of California, which has the 5th largest and one of the most diverse Black populations in the nation, has already set the precedence from Bill SC 189. Please do what is best for our community and clarify your current proposal. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts.
It's good to hear from you, Ms. Quarles. Thank you for participating in this process. We appreciate it.
Operator, we'll move on to our next caller now.
Sierra Ryder.
Hi there, this is Tiara Ryder. Are you able to hear me?
Hi, yes, we can.
Hi there, I'm Tiara Ryder. I'm a grassroots advocate with the freedmensbureau.org. I'm known generally under the category of African or Black American freedmen, which is my preferred identification. Excuse me. American freedmen should have our own category, similar to how Native Americans do. American freedmen are descendants of U.S. chattel slavery, the emancipation, and or freed Black persons that are foundational, indigenous, and native to what is now the United States. Someone mentioned earlier that Howard University, one of their ancestors went there, which is great. That university was founded with the help of freedmen who put up their own money via the Freedmen's Bureau to create Howard University. So the work of our ancestors still lives on today. To be clear, the American freedman identity is tied to the Freedmen's Bureau, which we are going to revamp, but the American freedman identity has existed long before the Bureau did, as our people fought to take back their freedom. And by taking back their freedom, they became freedmen. No man or authority gave my ancestors their freedom. My ancestors took what belonged to them by divine birthright. ADOS doesn't work. We should not have the word slave on the census form. That's absolutely inappropriate. And this is not just about our past, it's also going to be about the present as well. I want to further clarify that the portion of American freedmen's ancestry is tied directly to U.S. chattel slavery, but not only. Many of us have 20 to 30% European DNA. Some of us have 20 to 30% Native American ancestry as well, which uniquely ties us to varying groups. Our ancestors that arrived via Jamestown, or the ancestors that were here already pre-colonization, that were forced into slavery, right? They were forced into that. They were enslaved, not slaves. They had identities that existed outside of that. So respectfully, we don't want to be called slaves. You wouldn't call someone who was kidnapped the descendants of kidnapped. That doesn't make sense. We are American freedmen. That title stands on its own. It should have its own category, and how we identify under American freedmen is up to us. So American freedmen has this category. We're African American, we're American Negro, or foundational Black Americans. We're all of those things. That's absolutely correct. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in, and really for everybody calling in. Clearly, this is a topic that's very important and differing viewpoints, and we'll be sharing all of the views that have been happening across these 3 town halls and other means that we're receiving feedback with the working group.
And with that, operator, we'll take our next caller.
Dr. Cynthia Blackman Adeyemi. Dr. Cynthia Blackman Adeyemi. Thank you. Our next is John Thomas III.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
All right, great. Thank you. I am a professor at the College of Charleston, and I first of all want to thank you for sitting through these several days of commentaries. I'm calling regarding the unification of the Latino term, and I'm calling to voice my opposition to it. The last 15 years, I've conducted research, my PhD level research in Peru and Ecuador. And for the last 20 years, those populations have fought for inclusion to be included on the census. Black activists in both countries fought to be specifically included, Ecuador in 2011 and Peru in 2017. By joining all Latinos together in the census, that does nothing more than to make these populations invisible. And we know that Black Latinos in the United States have suffered discrimination, unlike white Latinos. And we also know that certain groups, not Naleo, who was on the call yesterday, specifically have voiced opposition to working with African American communities. If you join the Latinos under one column, you do two things. One, you continue the invisibility of Afro-Latinos in the United States. And more importantly, two, countries like Peru and Ecuador, where Black activists fought to be included as Black persons in their census, the United States is sending a message that it's not important for countries to look at specific ethnic groups. Black Peruvians exist, Black Ecuadorians exist, Afro-Latinos exist in the United States. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for, again, listening to all these comments. And I hope that you will take this feedback seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We do take the feedback very seriously. We take all of our feedback seriously. The intent of the proposals is to improve the accuracy and overall quality of the data that we're collecting. And so that is absolutely our intent. And I encourage you to follow some of the links that are in our Federal Register notice that point to Census Bureau research on this topic. We are following the highest quality evidence that we have available as we develop our recommendations. But thank you for your comment.
Operator, we're ready for our next call.
Angela, Nirvana.
Oh my goodness.
Hello?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, loud and clear.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I got to busy multitasking. I had to get to my script. Okay. I believe that the chaos we've been experiencing amongst the descendant community in these town halls is the fault of the OMB, not you guys specifically, and the United Daughters of the Confederacy, because of all of this reclassifying us every generation. Race has been made a social construct in this country, and now it's being weaponized against us to make us a permanent bottom caste. And sadly, in your own summary, you continue to perpetuate that, continue to victimize us with race, because Black African American is the only category in your summary that is referred to as a racial group. Flat Blackness has enabled our civil rights and affirmative action to be used to advance everyone but us. Flat Blackness masks America's failures, wherein American freedmen are concerned, and that is by design. But out of all this chaos expressed in these town halls, two things are absolutely certain. We do not want to be referred to as African American. Africans sold us into slavery. All they've ever been interested in is using us as a resource for their advancement. Case in point, Barack Obama, as an African American descendant of slave owners in Kenya. And the very Asian New York Representative Grace Ming erased the Negro classification federally because they decided it was offensive when it's clearly on my birth certificate. We want total separation from Black continental Africans and Caribbeans. And the other thing we agree on is that we demand our own reporting category. In closing, if the Asians can have 24 classifications in the country my ancestors built with their lives on that census, we should be able to add American freedmen for people like me who want to mark that as a classification, for the FBAs and for the ADOS, although aren't whites American descendants of slavery too, as Black Americans. I thank you so very much for allowing me to share. I know this has been an arduous task for you these last 3 days, but I'm so grateful to have learned about this process. You make it a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Well, I just want to first of all say we really value these town halls and appreciate everybody's time to participate, including yours, Angela. So thank you.
And with that, operator, we'll go on and move to our next call.
Susan Graham.
Hi, I'm Susan Graham. I'm representing Project Race today. I was told to put my son down as white by the Census Bureau on the 1990 census form. His kindergarten teacher decided he was black at school and he was multiracial at home. I remember thinking there was something terribly wrong with data collection in America. That was over 30 years ago, and racial designations are still a mess. My son is now 38 and does not have a true classification. Something is still very wrong. Perhaps we have not made our case with OMB. It is a matter of respectful terminology. Perhaps one day when your multiracial child or grandchild asks you what it means when someone calls them a mulatto, a mutt, or worse, you'll finally understand. The terminology of multiracial needs to be on government forms. The private sector has come a long way in specifying the correct wording, and it's time for OMB to catch up. Yet, even in the instruction portion, wording is important, and while we appreciate the updates made in that area, multiracial needs to be seen as well. When I look at government reports or media pie charts that aggregate the racial and ethnic categories, one slice should be clearly labeled multiracial, not two or more races. It would not disrupt numbers and would give our children the proper wording for themselves. Maybe multiracial children have fallen out of favor because a few organizations that used to advocate for them have closed or now want something like Latinx, I think. It's a shame. The biracial population jumped in 2020 by 276% over 2010. It is inevitable that it will grow. My advice to OMB is that they look forward, not only backwards, when it comes to racial and ethnic categories. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan, so much for sharing your perspective today.
Operator, we're ready for our next call.
Jay Reed.
Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I'm here today to submit my request to have a specific ethnic classification for Black African Americans whose lineage goes through chattel slavery in the United States of America. This new ethnic classification must be listed as foundational Black American. Because of the growing population to the United States via immigration, the term Black American in reference to Black Americans whose lineage goes through chattel slavery in the United States of America is outdated. With that said, I recommend that our new ethnic classification, foundational Black American, is to be used specifically for Black Americans whose lineage goes to chattel slavery in the United States. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in today, sharing your perspectives and your identification as a foundational Black American. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller, please.
Erica Mailer.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Erica Mailer, and I live in Florida. I claim the name of American descendants of slavery, ADOS. We descend from the people who built this country for free. We were made into a bottom caste in this country because of it. We are a specific ethnic group with a distinct culture. This aggregation of lineage between Black people will help to accurately show our wealth position in this country, explain why we pass down accrued disadvantage rather than wealth, and it draws a line directly to slavery as the cause. We suffered a specific harm, and we require a specific solution, With ADOS as our designation, we will be able to address and accurately and actually bring about the solutions our community needs. Reparations and a transformative Black agenda is what is needed. I thank the OMB for this opportunity.
Thank you, Erica, for your comment.
Operator, moving on to the next caller, please. Thank you.
Aurora.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to start by telling you I recently met an 87-year-old cousin of mine. He lives in South Carolina. was a school principal in New Jersey. And I told him about what was going on with the classifications and identifications. And his exact words was to me, my great-great-grandfather, my grandmother, my mother, and me was all Negroes. So I will continue to identify a Negro no matter what these people tell me. So I said, well, my great-grandparents and my grandmother and my dad all said that they were Negroes. So that's what I want to identify as. And that's what I will continue to identify as. And that's what my children will identify as Negroes who have blood, sweat, and ancestors in the soil of South Carolina. We don't want to be classified with the continental Africans or the Caribbeans because they don't share the same lineage nor the same fight and suffrage we have taken upon here in the wilderness of North America. So again, I like to identify as Negro, American Negro, and I like my own box to check off so I can show my great-great-grandbabies what they need to be checking off. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Aurora. Appreciate you being here today.
Operator, we'll take our next call now.
Nelson Sear.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good Saturday to the panel. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Sear, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I am a Black American veteran. My grandparents migrated from New York to New York from South Carolina, North Carolina, the Great Migration. However, they didn't migrate into the US. They were always here as Negro, Black, and colored. They didn't migrate here and reclassify into the lineage after chattel slavery. If you migrated into the US as a continental African or Caribbean and Afro-Latina or from over any sea or border, you're not Black American because Black Americans didn't migrate here. To be Black American is an inheritance of a common legacy spanning over 400 years of survival, justice, and fighting in and inspiring every American war for freedom. We are true patriots and hold America to the highest standards of liberty, what it means to be an American, the Black American legacy. You don't inherit another group's identity through migration, nor through naturalization or forced classification. It is an inheritance. We recognize Black American, American Negro, Negro person of color, but what I don't recognize is the freedman term. I don't recognize it. If freedman is an identity, why don't I recognize it? Because it isn't an ethnicity. This is a conversation of ethnicity, of people fighting against ethnic erasure. This is not a conversation of a freedman status. This is a conversation of a demographic recognition, not appealing to a colonizer to recognize me as a freed person or freed man. This conversation is one of delineation, securing cultural identity, securing one's legacy, securing one's inheritance, their ethnicity. And we do that by forcing those who aren't of that inheritance to choose a separate category, not change the Black American yet again, nor by imposing a free man's term on a collective group of Black Americans that don't identify with that term. That is violence, oppression, and the ways of a colonizer. I'm not a freeman nor any term that denotes slavery. Just because some of my people were enslaved doesn't make me a slave. Because my people were forced onto the plantation doesn't make me from the plantation. When you identify as a freedman, you're saying you're from a plantation, basically a political refugee in your own land. I know where I'm from. My ancestors built this nation and they were not slaves. They were real people with a culture that precedes and transcends slavery. Thus, I don't descend from a slave. I am a Black American. Please retire American freedmen. It is not an ethnicity, but a political party. I am a Black American, not an African American, and I advocate for the classification of Black American as an exclusive ethnicity. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your passion that you have on this topic with us. We appreciate you participating today.
Operator, we'll take our next caller, please.
Loyal Black American.
Greetings to the panel.
Hi.
Yes, I am an original Black American, a Black American, descending from the Americas. My family is originated from America. And that's all we know. I don't come from slavery. I don't want to be classified as a freedman. I don't want to be classified as none of these organizations that people are trying to go by. I come from a long lineage of people with a long legacy of history here in America. So if you guys could consider, please classify us Black Americans as Black Americans. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in with your comment. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll take our next call.
Antonio Chans.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The disaggregation of the Black/African American category is urgent and necessary, and I support American descendants of slavery as its official designation. Recently published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, there was a study called Black Nativity and Health Disparities, a research paradigm for understanding the social determinants of health, in which the authors looked at a review of 208 studies that compare physical and mental health and found that, quote, the overall pattern is that foreign-born Blacks have better health outcomes than native-born Blacks, end quote. In another study titled Low Birth Rate of Contemporary African Americans, an intergenerational effect of slavery, the author quotes, the following observation to slavery as a factor of potentially profound importance. Contemporary Black women who were born in African countries, ancestral to slave populations, but who live in the United States, give birth to children with significantly higher weight than Black women in the United States who have slave ancestry, end quote. The term American descendants of slavery is simple, but specific. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, above all, no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil, and no other group have had its family structure deliberately torn apart. This is the rub. I would like to thank the OMB for this opportunity and leave y'all with this. Although other people have called and offering various ethnic designations for Black Americans, I want the working group to keep track of how often the words American, descendant, and slavery are used throughout these town hall sessions and public comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Antonio.
Operator, we'll take our next caller, please.
Princess Rodman.
Hello, my name is Princess Rodman, Secretary of the Anti-Negro Defamation League. Thank you all for allowing me to contribute to this town hall on race and ethnicity statistical standards utilized by the OMB. At this time, I'd like to read an excerpt from the report to fulfill these rights, and I quote, its object will be to help the American Negro fulfill the rights which after the long time of injustice he is finally about to secure, to move beyond the opportunity to achievement, to shatter forever not only the barriers of law and public practice, but the walls which bound the conditions of man by the color of his skin. With these words, the President of the United States, then Lyndon B. Johnson, announced his plan to convene the White House conference, quote, to fulfill these rights. The time was June 4th, 1965, the place, Howard University. This is a report of that meeting, which took place 1 year later. It is a distillation of 12 months of intensive study by hundreds of individuals and organizations and the deliberations of more than 2,500 American men, women, and who assembled in the nation's capital on June 1st and 2nd, 1966, at the invitation of their president. It is a blueprint for action hammered out by citizens who recognize the urgent need to pool their knowledge, energies, and resources in an event described by their honorary then chairman, Mr. A. Philip Randolph, one of the most important held to seek a solution for the Negro problem since the Civil War. I share that with you all to highlight the urgent need to truly fulfill the rights of the American Negro into perpetuity by retaining the term Negro and permanently preserving our birthright. Although we are descendants of American slaves, we are American Negroes through and through. I urge the OMB to retain and honor our ancestors, our history in this nation, as well as our heritage, and restore our birthright to its rightful place. Thank you, and you guys stay blessed.
Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Operator, we'll move to our next caller, please.
Courtney Williams.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Great. Thank you for your time. My name is Courtney Williams. I'm a senior transportation planner. I'm calling in to express my support for American descendants of slavery as the ethnic designation, either as its own separate category or as a subcategory under Black. Within my experience working as a transportation planner, I've noticed that one of the things we need is good, accurate demographic data. Oftentimes, terms like Black and minorities get confounded when we're trying to find good data that we can then use to build projects that provide better travel and efficiency for our constituents. President Biden recently had an executive order to promote and advance equity, but one of the problems that I see within my industry is that there is not a term. What I believe ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, would enable us as transportation practitioners to actually use to identify a specific group that has experienced the perils of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, mass incarceration, and then be able to use that information because it is now an ethnic designation to apply our expertise to improve these communities. And so I advise the OMB to really take that into account, how this would affect not just the ethnic designation, but how other practitioners follow the guidance of the federal government for collecting data and developing projects that benefit community members. So thank you for your time. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us and for making a comment today.
Operator, we'll take our next call now.
Michael Hick, board member, NCCFR.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you to the OMB for this process and for this town hall. I'm a resident of Louisville, Kentucky, a caregiver of my wife for 20 years and a father of two. My paternal lineage in America comes from Hinds County, Mississippi, and my maternal lineage in America comes from Limestone County, Alabama. Black America is having a robust discussion on social media platforms and the public square. This discussion has involved a number of acronyms and classifications. We have been a heavily subjected, traumatized people. The dreams and aspirations of Black Americans via the Freedmen's Bureau was something that was thwarted through financial malfeasance and political compromise. The disaggregation of race, particularly Black, is fully supported. The proposals to add lineage-based categories will assist with data collecting, which should foster improved policies to groups marginalized or discriminated against for decades. As a person who has traced their lineage and has recognized the disadvantage that my ancestors and descendants have faced as citizens of America. Today, Black Americans, whose ancestors have suffered through 19th century slavery, 20th century Jim Crow terrorism, and 21st century ongoing discrimination, still have the worst socioeconomic incomes of all racial, ethnic categories, despite being in North America for 404 years. If we want resources to go to the population that needs them most, we must recognize who is affected and why. Please make sure that there is a category for Black Americans descendant of U.S. chattel slavery. Thank you all, Mr. Cook, Ms. Orvis, Mr. Savinsky, Ms. Battle, for your time. Thank you.
We want to thank you for your time too and your perspective.
Operator, we're ready for our next caller, please.
Jonathan Barbie.
Hello, thank you for taking the time. I would like to be recognized as foundational Black American. We are foundational to this nation. We come from the killing fields of the American South. And I hope that, foundational Black American is clear. If you tell somebody you're a foundational Black American, they know exactly who you are. They know you're not a Caribbean. They know you're not an immigrant. They know you're specifically for the people that could trace their lineage back to this country before this country was even founded. Without our input, this country would have not been the richest country in the world. So I please that I don't want my name tied to no word slavery. Okay, I think that would be disrespectful to our ancestors. No, we're foundational to this nation. Thank you for having this time.
Thank you for your comment, Jonathan.
Operator, we'll take our next call now, please.
Madeira Wright.
Hi, my name is Nadera Wright, and I'm an American born of descendants of enslaved persons in the country we now know as the United States of America. My birth certificate doesn't specify any race or ethnicity, as I hear some people claim. I'm a child of the 70s. And I just wanted to state many of my ancestors, they didn't even have birth certificates, and it's unclear if they were even able to self-identify or if the census taker entered their race based on an observation. It's unclear. That's why I'm in support and advocate for the inclusion to the US Census, the category of American descendants of slavery, otherwise known as ADOS. Both my parents are ADOS. My dad's side hails from South Carolina. Most of my mother's family, they still reside in Mississippi. And both were part of the Great Migration, moving north to New York. Although I'm a New Yorker, my lineage traces back to the pre-war South, where my ancestors, they were forcibly tied to lands and their labors helped build this great nation. I'm proud of that lineage, and therefore I just wish to specifically identify as ADOS as opposed to Black American or African American, which tends, as a lot of callers I hear state, lumps Caribbean and African immigrants together as a single race category. And although my skin color, it suggests that my ancestors derive from Africa, I don't identify or have any specific roots in any African nation. So therefore, but I do believe the Black or African American term is, although it's broad, it's necessary if the government's gonna continue to classify its citizens based on their color. I understand the necessity for the government to target resources. Okay, I understand it's important to target resources and efficiently in order to better serve the communities, and that's why I just believe that the disaggregation is imperative now more than ever. And I'll just end it there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us and sharing some of your family story and how it's shaped your current identity. We appreciate that.
Operator, we'll take our next caller now.
Mike Miller.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Mike Miller. There are many Black Americans since have been removed from the original country and lost their foreign culture and language and have no connection to ancestors in Africa. The following changes for the OMB should be as follows. Foundational Black American, any person that has been in the United States. So I want it to be Foundational Black American, the racial ethnic update for OMB to be. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time today.
Mike, thank you for your time as well. Appreciate you being a part of this town hall.
Operator, let's go ahead and move to our next caller, please.
James McCoy.
Hello, my name is James McCoy. I'm an activist known as Afro Elite. I am a part of the Foundational Black American Advocacy Committee. I conducted a study last year with thousands of people who were a part and participated, voted overwhelmingly that Foundational Black American is the most specific, accurate, and non-offensive term for us to be redesignated as. They said that in the poll, there were comments, they said they don't want to be referred to as anything that has to do with slavery. They find Negro, freedmen, anything with the word slave in it derogatory, disrespectful, and offensive, yet they want something that specifically ties them to their lineage as being the foundation of the people who built this country. So Foundation Black American is the most simple, easiest, and logical, non-offensive term that delineates us from all other Black people who live in this country who might be American citizens. Because disaggregating and delineating is important for data collection. That's what the study conducted. So I want to thank you guys for taking my call.
Thank you for joining us for this town hall and sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it.
Operator, we'll take our next caller.
Ernest Russell, Michigan.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Ernest Russell, and I'm an officer and co-founder of the Freedmen Agenda League of Michigan. In today's comments, our organization would like to point out that the OMB and Census Bureau have the power to delineate, disaggregate, and create new racial and ethnic categories that will shape the opportunities and policies created in America. This power is tremendous in that it could impact nearly every agency, institution, and employer as it relates to federal data collection where race and ethnicity are required. Therefore, we believe that it is important for you to use this power in adherence to the voices of the communities that are speaking today. We agree with the initial proposal 3 that greater granularity is needed or required as it relates to the collection of data and SPD 15's minimum categories. We would also like to ask the OMB to update the initial proposal 3, if possible, to include a disaggregate term under the minimum category Black, so that we can identify, as you've heard from this audience, people who are descendants of emancipated persons, i.e. American freedmen, or people who are descendants of slaves, i.e. American descendants of slavery. For me personally, American freedmen is in a literal sense, meaning descendant of persons emancipated from American chattel slavery by way of Emancipation Proclamation, 13th Amendment, or other manumissions within the USA. Lastly, I would like to state that if the goal of this body or working group is to collect better data for Americans, then your body should deprioritize the usage of racial terms like Black or white and lean towards ethnicity where possible so that people are truly identified as it relates to being seen in federal data. Again, if we're talking about the initial proposal number 3, I think most of this audience, the Black audience, would agree that we would like to see a separate identifier or marker that identifies persons who are who were descendants of emancipated persons or descendants of slaves, descendants of freedmen, descendants of Negro, et cetera. And with that, I would like to wrap up my comments.
We appreciate your feedback, Ernest. Thank you.
Operator, may we have our next caller, please?
Amin Nash.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to everybody in there. I applaud OMB for keeping up with this initiative through its ups and downs. So my name is Amin Nash. I'm the son of Iraqi immigrants. I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and now I'm a resident in Southern California. I spent all my life in America, and I really love this country. And I want to give my approval for the implementation of the Middle East and North African category. Reason being is because for the longest time, I hated not seeing myself in the category and demographics everywhere I went. When I went to professional fields like healthcare or education, like if I went to see a psychologist, many people will have to guess my experience because there was no professional data. So I feel the MENA category could help alleviate some of these struggles. But as a simple critique, this struggle has been part due to the historic lack of imagination. So I think it's really important in part of the OMB to really start imagining the MENA Americans as part of the fabric of America. And I just want to address that a big concern I've heard from many people in my community is the surveillance aspect of data. As you guys know, after 9/11, many Arab Americans and Muslim Americans in general are traumatized by the targeting of the government's, efforts to curtail terrorism. So I think MENA Americans need to be properly protected. We should be considering their protection and make sure the data is not abused in any way. I want to lastly to say that I support a combined question format, but I would like to see somebody to write in their own identity because many people in the MENA region are of different identifications and transnational identities. So having the opportunity for people to identify, say if they are Kurdish or Chaldean, is very important. And finally, I want to address the issue of the lack of a Palestinian box. Specifically, I want to mention that in Los Angeles, I know of many people who are Russian-born individuals. They moved to Israel, and then they claim they're part of the Middle Eastern North African region. But here in Los Angeles, we have many elderly people who have Palestine listed in their passport as a birthplace, but they can't claim Palestine as a place of origin. So I would argue keeping it like this would kind of continue perpetuating this project of ethnic cleansing and an erasure of Palestinians. So Palestinians should be listed on the box as well. So once again, thank you guys. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate all you guys' work, and hope to see the media individuals included in this. So thank you. I think that's it.
Well, thank you, Amin, for sharing your suggestions and your feedback overall today. We appreciate it.
And operator, looks like we have enough time to take one more call, please. Our last call.
Thank you for that. Our final comment then is from Sister Ella Rella.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name is Sister Rella. Most people know me as Rella. I'm an activist. I live in Virginia. I also work with a multitude of organizations that deal with studies in history. I do understand that this is about race and ethnicity. So I agree with one of the callers that actually stated that your suggested requirements need to be, I believe, updated and to disaggregate between race and ethnicity as separate categories, and additionally also do the same for all other groups and add a category under ethnicity with nationality to actually be defined. I agree that American freedmen as well as Negro should not be taken out of the lexicon because it is part of the historical records across the government. But I do understand that there are some further information that needs to also be sorted out. I believe, though, as well as the larger Latino groups should be disaggregated as well as by race, nationality, and ethnicity. And MENA should also be disaggregated by nationality and ethnicity under the category of white designator. Also, because of the historical records of the birth certificates being manipulated by race, ethnicity needs to be all incumbents with the information that is resided over under the OMB. Title 18, Section 242 under the color of law states that no deprivation under the color of law for any government agency should deprive a United States citizen, a United States American citizen. So the OMB has definitely a heavy task on their hands to actually get this right. And also that the Supreme Court back in 1982 approved that ethnicity is actually covered and ancestry is covered. So for those who believe that they don't want to be tied to any form of enslavement, they need to rethink that, because American freedmen represent the emancipation portion of our historical record that is actually covered under the 13th and 14th Amendment. So I would like and I request the OMB to definitely go back and take a look at your SPD 15 requirements and do further disaggregation and add particular categories so that everyone on the call can be represented. And I'm sorry, one last point. ADOS and FBA are not terms that are found in the United States government lexicon in regards to politics or historical record. And I'll leave that there.
Well, thank you for calling and joining us and sharing your thoughts. And thank you also to all of our other callers who joined us today. We really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
In closing, for the people that didn't get it to have your comments be heard today, if you're still on the line, I implore you to visit the Federal Register notice at federalregister.gov. You have until April 12th, 2023 to submit your comments on updating the federal race and ethnicity standards. This is the best way to provide comments to these initial proposals. You can also reach the Federal Register notice from a link on the working group's website. That website is SPD15revision.gov. That's SPD15revision.gov. You can respond to any proposals or questions in the notice that you'd like, and you can send any thoughts about how to improve the standards, even if they aren't related to one of the working group's initial proposals. Additional information will be added to the SPD15revision.gov website as we continue. Additionally, you will notice that we have loaded the very first town hall that we had on March 14th, and we will be loading Friday's town hall as well, and this one, so that you can take a look at that information as well at your leisure. Additional information will be loaded on SPD15revision.gov as we go throughout this process, so please check back there for updates. Again, thank you all for joining us and participating in this exciting opportunity to improve the way that we collect and measure race and ethnicity. We look forward to reading your comments on the Federal Register notice. This concludes today's town hall. Thanks, everyone.
As today's forum is concluded, again, thank you for your participation. You may please disconnect at this time.
The way it currently stands, forced labor, slavery takes precedence over rehabilitation and public safety.
Oh, by the way, while the Biden administration gives reparations to everyone but freed people, look at the billions he has run over to Ukraine.
We don't have black grocery stores because if you think about it now, just to get in that supply chain, it's almost unheard of.
They don't want the truth to get out. Okay? I don't want to know what my family did or what all these people did and all this stuff like that. Okay? Come on. You read that 500-page report.
There's this thing called white superiority and black inferiority. That mindset allows all of the behaviors that we've seen across generations.
I had no idea that that church I was running by every day was something my grandfather established.
This is not a handout. This is a debt that is owed.
You know, Allensworth was like the internet of his time in 1904, 1905.
The total black population in California is about 2.6 million, and then of that, the descendants compose about 2.2 million of that. So California, with a multi-billion-dollar surplus, can absolutely afford to satisfy the international terms for reparations, beginning with compensation.
Any financial obstacle that exists that impedes the success of increasing financial prosperity needs to be dealt with and eliminated.
No matter where we've been, no matter what part of this fight we've been in, we've been harmed, and we've had harm done to us specifically.
When I got to Los Angeles, this was some of the worst segregation I'd ever seen. And remember, I'm telling you, I'm from Mississippi.
Because as you can see, I'm giving you broken history right now, you know? But I had to give it to you guys today. I said, no, I got to show them this because it's so precious and nobody really knows about it.
Overnight, it's like, oh, it's no longer the quarters, now it's Lincoln Heights. Oh, so now we get to use Abraham Lincoln for our name. And you think about all the other people that they could have used, but they picked Lincoln. And I think that's sort of a stereotypical of what they do.
There wasn't any black restaurants. As far as black business and weed, it wasn't none.
Black people don't have that kind of luxury. Our historically black communities have been redistricted multiple times.
Why has it been easier for other groups than us?
Because of anti-black hatred.
Now listen, if you can't handle the TR room, don't tune in.